On the super review, let's take a look at the SoundPEATS A2. That's right, we got another Bluetooth headphone here. You know, I just reviewed the Grado GW100, and it's a pretty nice headphone, pretty nice wireless Bluetooth headphone, but it costs 250 bucks. The SoundPEATS A2, however, does not cost 250 bucks. In fact, on Amazon, this is a bit under 40 bucks right now. So let's go ahead and open it up. We'll see what you get in the box, and then we'll give it a listening test, and I'll come back and I'll let you know, is the A2 by SoundPEATS a worthy $40 headphone? Let's check it out. All right, one of these days I'm gonna have a box that's too large to spin, but that's not today. All right, so here we have the SoundPEATS A2. It's a wireless headset with a built-in mic. If you wanna make phone calls on an over-ear headphone, well, this is a thing that promises to be able to do that. That said, I don't make phone calls, so I'm not really interested in that functionality. What I'm interested in is a wireless headphone with 20 hours of battery life, all right? So we just also reviewed the MPOW H5, and that had a battery life of around 18 hours. So this is a little bit better. That said, the A2 from SoundPEATS, it does not have active noise cancellation. So that's just one difference that's worth calling out right now. Let's go ahead and go around the box and see if we can find out anything else about the A2. All right, here on the side, these are claiming to have a 40mm driver, which is a fairly large driver, I suppose. It doesn't necessarily tell you anything about the audio quality, but it's maybe an indication that, you know, these are made to be loud. They claim to have enhanced bass. We'll put that to the test. They've got a built-in microphone and 20 hours of music time. On this side, well, unearth experience. That's an odd tagline, but I think it tells you everything, doesn't it? And then here in the back, let's see, again with the 40mm drivers, again with the 20 hours of battery life. It's a comfortable fit with flexible material, enjoy hands-free calls, and it's got a one-tap bass booster. Okay, so that's news. Over on this side, it said something about enhanced bass. I didn't realize that there's gonna be a button, a function that will allow me to increase the bass. You know, to be frank, I am not like a bass fiend. I don't demand that my headphones have the most bass. In fact, mid-range is generally what I prefer. That said, I gotta admit, bass is a lot of fun. Well, that's about as much as we can find out from the box. So let's go ahead and crack it open and see what's inside. Okay, so what do you get in the box of the SoundPEATS A2? Well, of course you get some much needed paperwork. You get this little card. I don't even know what that is. It's got a QR code on it though, if you're into QR codes. But of course we've got a user manual as well. And of course, I really hope I don't have to use that. Over here, we've got the usual cables that you get with Bluetooth headphones, right? You got a USB or a micro USB cable for charging. And then over here, you've got a 3.5mm to 3.5mm cable so that if you needed to use these things without battery power, you could connect them directly to your smartphone or whatever you have that still has one of these connectors on it. And then they also do provide a little pouch, which is, oh, that's a nice little touch. It's not fancy, nothing fancy here, but it does have a nice little SoundPEATS logo on it. It's soft touch, very thin. I don't think it's gonna be very protective necessarily. But it is something to put your headphones in. And then we get to the headphone itself, which is on first impression, much lighter than it looks. This, if you're seeing this on camera, I don't think you're gonna appreciate how lightweight this is. This is ridiculously lightweight for a headphone that might be an over-ear headphone. That's actually something I'm interested to check out. Are these cups large enough to go around my ears? That's something I'll find out. But yeah, initial impressions, apart from it being lightweight, is that this is a pretty handsome looking headset, but you know, this definitely feels cheaper than the MPOW H5. And now, okay, the MPOW H5, this is cheaper than the MPOW H5. The H5 is about 15 bucks more than this right now, but the H5 has the added feature of noise cancellation. So I feel like that accounts for some of the price difference, not necessarily build quality. The ear cushions are, it's not the softest material. This is a little slick feeling maybe. It feels like it could get a little bit sweaty, but that's pure speculation at this point. I haven't even put them on my head. All right, down here on the side, we've got a few buttons. Let's see, I don't know, that looks like a button, but it doesn't press. You've got volume up and volume down. My volume up button seems to not click. The other buttons click fine, volume up does not. I'm a little worried about that. And then also worth pointing out that there does not seem to be any folding mechanism on this headset. So if you're looking for something that's super compact, well, it doesn't look like the A2 is it. That said, what's really gonna be interesting to me is how does this sound? So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and take this, I'm gonna connect it to my phone, listen to some music, run it against my reference music, and I'll come back and I'll let you know how do these sound. All right, so I just got done testing the A2 by SoundPEATS, and I'm ready to let you know what I think. I think that generally this is a pretty decent headphone, but it's not a great headphone. And we'll start with the build quality, which is probably the worst thing about this. The build quality, I gotta say, it leaves a lot to be desired. I think that, you know, aesthetically, it's actually a pretty good looking headphone. I don't know, it's just a nice, clean, simple design. Unfortunately, that design is let down by just relatively cheap feeling plastics, as well as really no folding mechanism of any sort, which is surprising, frankly. Like, there's not a lot of Bluetooth headphones that you can find that don't have any folding mechanism, let alone like not even swiveling cups. The only swivel you get on these cups is just flexibility in the headband. The other thing about the build that lets down a little bit is just the material on these pads, you know, around the headband and on the ear pads themselves. This material is just, it's a little slick, and it doesn't feel like it's gonna breathe very well. So I do have a feeling that this is gonna be a pretty sweaty headphone. If you're wearing this like exercising, or even really just sitting around for a long time, I have a feeling it's gonna start to sweat eventually. Also worth calling out is that the copy of the A2 that I've got has a defect with the buttons. The buttons don't quite function correctly. I mean, they function, they just don't click. And this has happened to me before when I bought some headphones, so it's pretty easy to get a replacement. I don't think that's gonna be a problem with SoundPEATS. You should be able to get a replacement, but that is something to look out for. In terms of how they fit and comfort, look, okay, I said that they're made out of a really thin, cheap plastic, and that's true, which could be completely a negative, but I think it's actually in some ways a positive because it makes this a very lightweight headphone. For a headphone that is completely over ears, this has got to be the lightest over-ear headphone I've ever held. And yeah, it does totally fit over my ears. It may be a little bit of a tight fit, but it is for sure an over-ear headphone. In terms of general functionality, the A2 it's pretty par for the course for a Bluetooth headphone like this. The only thing that stood out, well, actually two things stood out. One of them not so good, one of them really good. Okay, let's get to it. The one thing that stood out first was that it took a while to pair, just a little bit longer than usual, but it did eventually pair. And since it paired, it's been functioning totally fine. The positive thing that stands out is that the Bluetooth range on this is excellent. Like, I left these in this room, and then I went around the corner where, you know, some other headphones will start to break up as soon as there's a wall between me and my phone. No such issue with the A2. I kept a strong connection. So I was like, how far can I push this? I left the phone in this room, walked across the house to a completely different room, and I'm guessing I was a good like 20 plus feet with multiple walls in between me and my phone. And the headphone was still playing music without really any drops at all. That's pretty impressive. I didn't expect that. Other functionality notes is that this thing has got 4 buttons on the back of the right ear cup. It's got your typical, you know, play pause button. It's got volume up and down, and it doesn't beep when you change the volume. That's nice. As well as it's got this 4th bass boost button, and you tap that button and it changes the sound and it makes it a bassier headphone, which I recommend you never ever press that button because it turns an otherwise pretty decent sounding headphone into straight booty tier. So yeah, without the bass boost enabled, this is a pretty decent sounding headphone. It's not the best sounding headphone I've heard, But for around a little under 40 bucks for a headphone like this, it's not bad. It's a pretty decent sound. Not the cleanest sound like the MPOW H5 that I listened to a little bit ago. That thing sounds quite a bit better than this, but this is still doing a pretty decent job, and it's doing it at about 15 bucks less. So that much is good. The bass boost button, however, oof, it makes it sound really, it does increase the bass if you just want bass that starts to rattle the drivers and otherwise also just kind of ruins the sound. You can hit that button if you want, but I don't recommend it. I don't think anyone who's really into bass is gonna be into that either. On the plus side, this headphone can get very, very loud. If you like your music loud, well, I think the A2 is gonna get plenty loud for you. So if I were to score the SoundPEATS A2 headphone, I'd probably have to give it like 3 stars out of 5. I think that, you know, this is a pretty cheap headphone. This is under 40 bucks for an over-ear Bluetooth headphone. So it's pretty cheap. The build quality though, it definitely shows that it's a cheap headphone. That said, like the Bluetooth connection is really surprisingly good. If you have a need for a headphone that has a really strong Bluetooth connection, I think you might be pretty satisfied with this. The sound quality is pretty decent. Just again, stay away from that boost button. I think the biggest bummer with this thing is the fact that there's no folding mechanism or any swiveling on this. It just kind of limits this headphone in terms of its portability, or really even like the range of heads that it's gonna fit really well. If you're interested in checking out the SoundPEATS A2, I do have links to Amazon in the description down below. While you're down there, you can hit the like button for the video. If you liked it, you can subscribe to the channel, and then I'll see you in the next super review.